Hello friends, my name is Sande and I'm presenting a topic that I have entitled Election Time. When God did not include Lucifer into the court of heaven, Lucifer had a perception of unworthiness. He was not worthy enough to get inside that court. Out of that feeling of unworthiness, or what we will call low self-esteem, he used that as a platform to enhance and exalt himself above the God of heaven. He wanted to be like God. In other words, he wanted to be good, he wanted to be merciful, he wanted to be loving, he wanted to be a good citizen, a good individual, but without God. He wanted to do it in his own terms and conditions. So do not be mistaken into thinking that what Satan wanted to become was evil. Satan did not want to become evil. He wanted to become worthy. And he wanted to become like God, good, loving, merciful, etc. And that feeling of unworthiness, he transferred down to earth. Now, when you think about it, my inquiry from God, why did you actually send that guy down here? Well, a lot has to do with the type of love that is divine. A love that was shown by the father towards the prodigal son when the prodigal son asked to leave, and he asked for money to leave, and he was going to use that money to waste it. Well, the father actually provided and facilitated that event, and he even gave the money, and he allowed him to go. In the same way, in the same manner, we see, because that's a representation of who God is, in the same manner, when Satan actually proposed the idea of, I'm going to run my own country, I'm going to run my own platform, I'm going to run my own system, and I'm going to prove to you that I can do it as good as you can. And if you wipe me off, nobody will know if I was able, and it will appear as if you were trying to stop me, to prove to you, God, that I can be as good as you are. Friends, when people don't want to know anything about God, in the great majority of cases, it's not because they are choosing to be evil or because they want to be evil. They actually want to be good, caring citizens. They want to support the work in Africa and the work in India. They want to support orphanages. They want to be good citizens. They want to return the wallet if the wallet falls down from the pocket of someone. They want to be good without God. Okay? It's not that they purposely want to be evil. Now, at that point, according to Bible chronology, we had God, all the unfallen worlds, and we had the angels. When Lucifer decided to become an enemy of God and do it his way and be a prodigal, and God allowed that to happen and facilitated that event. What Lucifer was aiming for was to show to the entire universe that there was a possible way to be without God and still be good. And that's what you hear today in many circles. I don't need to be a Christian to be good. I actually know many Christians that are very good and they don't know anything about God. They don't want to know anything about God. Well, in reality, I know many Christians that do not know anything about God. They don't know the character of God either. Now, it is at that point when a huge void was left in the heart of God. He loved Lucifer, just the same as the father loves the prodigal son. He loved the other angels. The Bible identifies 1/3 of the angels went with Lucifer. 1/3. And talking about angels, we know that the numbers are astronomical in the Bible, in the biblical context. You know, thousands upon thousands and 10,000s upon 10,000s. Huge amount of angels. And one third of them left the Father. So what it was left in the Father's heart was a void, an emptiness. That emptiness, there is going to be filled, because that prodigal son called Lucifer, unfortunately, he's not going to come to his senses like the prodigal son in the parable, and he's not going to come back to be accepted by the Father. It's a sad story. The prodigal will waste all his talents, and in this case, with Lucifer, will not come back to his senses and return to the Father. So the Father will actually be left with a tremendous hole. But holes, emotional holes in our hearts, sometimes get filled with something else, something also very, very precious. And the story tells us in a chronological way that God actually created this world, this earth. And He actually created Adam. Out of Adam, he created Eve. And He said to them, be fruitful and multiply. We know, for instance, that we live in a world that has limited dimensions. As we're growing in population, the world is not growing in size. So it's going to come a point at a time in history that if this continues to grow in this rate, we are going to have a problem with food supply and water supply, because everything has reached to maximum capacity. How many people can you bring inside a bus? Well, according to the limits of that bus. The same for the world. So be fruitful and multiplied. What was the purpose? Do you know what is your purpose? Why you are even here? Why were you even born? Because you are part of the desire of God to fill up the gap and the emptiness that was left by the prodigal in his heart. Though that prodigal Lucifer, we know that he's not going to come back, not because God didn't want to, but because he, in his stubbornness, is not going to say, I was wrong, I could not do it without God. But that doesn't mean that you have to remain a prodigal and never come back. In fact, by you coming, you are fulfilling the gap in the heart of God. A biblical commentator said once that the number of the redeemed, those that will come back to God, will be equal to the gap that was left in heaven by Satan and his angels. Do you know what you were made? You were made to fill the love of God and the gap that it was of that love in his heart. So Satan needed a platform. He became a prodigal and he needed a platform to actually set up his kingdom. And the Bible actually tells us that in the Garden of Eden, when the first man and the first woman were set there, God told them that of all they could see, all belonged to them. All of it belonged to them. And they had been given power over everything that they could see. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but it wasn't all of it. There was actually a tree, and out of that tree was a fruit, and God says, from that tree, do not eat, because the day that you eat of it, that day you will actually die. Now, how does that work? Who was on that tree? Yes, it was the fruit, for sure. But someone else was found on that tree, that old serpent of old called Satan and the devil. The serpent was on that tree that they meant not to take from. Satan was there. Now, what was he doing there? I call it election campaigning. It's like the election campaigning in your country. You have mainly two candidates. In Australia, we have the Liberals and we have the Labor. And in America, in the United States, you have the Republicans and you have the Democrats. Well, God presents his campaign proposal, the way in which he's going to do things if you vote for him. Satan, the prodigal, needed a place to set up his kingdom, needed a place to actually set up his system and prove to the entire universe that he could actually do it and he can actually be good without God. So what you actually see on that tree, the tree of good and evil, is an election booth. One of those tables set before an election college or school where you go and vote. And there he is, there's the serpent. He is going to expose to you his campaign strategies and what he's going to do for you. So what God proposed to Adam and Eve was this: I'm giving you power over everything. You can recreate, you can sort of reproduce, you can actually have creative power. You will be basically representing my image. You will be like me. They will see you in the way you operate. They will see you in the way you act, and they will see a reflection of me in you. And I will give you everything. You are my children. I'll give you everything. I will give you life and everything else. Now, despite the fact that I'm giving you everything, this only comes because you are choosing me as your ruler. You are choosing me as your father, as the one that you want to behold to and imitate. You're choosing me. When you're choosing me, I'll give you everything. You choose me, and I'll give you everything, give you life, life in abundance. I love you. Now, if you choose him, the one from that had set up booth there near that tree, if you choose him, you will die. He's one of those politicians that are just lying. They will say to you whatever, but it's just to get you under their control, to put a new world order over you. I'll give you everything. I'll give you life. Do not choose him. But in the freedom of choice, which is part of God's loving government, these two individuals put an ear to this other candidate. And this candidate is saying to them, well, I can give more than him. You see, that candidate, which is called God, he's going to tell you what he can give you. I'm going to give you something better. If you vote for me, I can make you like him. So nobody will tell you what to do or what your dominion will be. You will set the borders of your dominion, not him. You will set the borders of your capabilities, not him. If you vote for me, you will be like God. And in order to prove to you that I can do that, see, I'm a serpent. I can even talk. Why? Because I'm already a God. And that's the experience that I'm offering you. But as I said, as a great politician of these times, he was a great liar. In reality, one of those two politicians, God, was truthful. The other one was a liar. When they ate of that fruit, they were actually casting a vote. They actually voted to be ruled by that candidate. That candidate became their president. And he has become the president of the humans in this world. Now, you might think, hold on a second, it's not actually fair. It's not fair because I haven't voted for him. I was just born into a family and I've been born into this world and I have to put up with his rulership. I don't like his rulership because there's some good things, but also some evil things. That's why it was the tree of good and evil. Good things happen in this world. You can actually have very beautiful humanitarian work and at the same time very tremendous evil and pain and suffering. You can have the soft heart of a nurse in front of a cancer patient. And that is the result of this government here. So let me ask you a question. If a president normally in a democratic country can stay in position for 4 years unless he gets re-elected, so for 4 years, let's say that politician is on his 4th year as a president. Ever since he actually became a president until now, 4 years later, had any children been born during that time in his country? Sure. The children have actually been born between the time he became a president and until now, 4 years later. And those children are going to be affected in one way or another to the fact that he has been a president of that country and under the rulership of his presidency. They haven't voted for him. The parents did or did not, but the thing is that the ruling of the country is under the influence of that president, despite the fact that those 3-year-old babies never voted for him. Well, that's you and me. We never voted for him when we were born. We were born into his kingdom. We were born into his system. We were born into his system of good and evil. That's where we voted. Why? Because somebody else voted for us. Now, in the case of that president illustration that I told you before, let's say the father of a baby voted for this president, and now the president gets into office and the mother has a baby. Now, the baby hasn't voted, but the father has. In other words, the father has actually voted for that president, and the baby is suffering or enduring or under the rulership of that president that was voted in by the fathers. The same way, we are actually into the rulership of this Satan because our forefathers voted for him. Now, when is the next time when I can actually vote? Well, in legal terms, if we can actually continue with the illustration in a democratic government, when you turn 18, you can actually vote your own candidate. So why 18, for instance, in a secular world? Because that's when you have a certain level of cognitive and understanding, and you give yourself a little bit of an idea of what is actually happening, right? Well, in this scenario that we're talking about, with this controversy between these two sides, your election time is also based on your capabilities and understanding of what is actually happening here. When you actually realize, hold on a second, I do not want to live under the rulership of that government. I don't want to be ruled by anger. I don't want to be ruled by pain. I don't want to be ruled by frustration. I don't want to be ruled by all those things that are controlling our lives and our behaviors. I don't want to be ruled by that. I want to be ruled by love. I want to be ruled by good deeds. I want to be how do I do that? Then you need to vote for Jesus. When? When you are a baby? Of course not. You have no idea. You're not allowed to vote at a presidency when you were a baby. But when you gain the understanding and the maturity And for some people that's earlier, and for others is much later. But when the person gets into the sense, into their understanding that they don't want to follow through anymore through this rule, but rather change to the rule of God. Everybody has an election time. Everybody has the opportunity for an election. Everybody has an opportunity to actually cast their vote, either on this side and let that rulership of Satan continue to control their lives. And notice, it's going to be with the intent of you trying to become good. Not evil, but good. The evil comes like a side effect. Evil is like a side effect of this rulership. And there is a side effect because God is not in it. Because in God there is no evil. So when we voting for this fella here, we're not voting to him or for him because we want to be evil. We vote for him because we want to do things good. Evil is a side effect that comes through it because we are not with God. In God there is no evil. Now, how often does that election time come? Well, it comes periodically. It comes in a regular basis, sometimes every 4 years. Sometimes a person can actually skip election time. Sometimes for 8 years that person has been plugging their ears, and maybe when somebody was talking about the salvation of Jesus Christ, or when he was actually trying to open their understanding so they can actually do an informed decision in their voting, they decided to rather leave the place and not go to the voting place and not kneel down and actually cast the vote in the side of Jesus, but rather just drink it down with alcohol or whichever other way. The thing is that election time comes, and it comes often enough. An opportunity in the lifespan of that person to actually vote for Jesus. And I'm saying an opportunity in the lifetime of that person when that person is of an age that is able to understand what's going on. Because I believe that God is sealing the hearts of many little children that have suffered the side effects of evil because of the rulership of Satan. And He is going to give a surprise to many when we see the amount of children that are actually in heaven. But besides that, at regular intervals, here and there, every person is going to be challenged. Maybe everything is going crazy and then something happens, death in the family or whatever. And that is a time in which you are placed again between the tree of good and evil and the tree of Jesus, the tree of life. And you can ignore it or not. You can just vote blank. The moment you vote blank, what you're doing is you just carry on with the rulership that has been ruling you up till then. If you vote to Satan, you actually purposely doing it. But even blank, when you put a blank vote in it, you're actually just allowing him to continue with his government. So when does it stop? When does God, that has a void in his heart, and he wants you to fill it, to fill that void up, when does he stop providing for you an invitation to vote for him and to come back as a prodigal and to be under his rulership? Well, there is a story in the Bible about a thief on the cross. A thief on the cross that was just almost dying, and it has been well used through many Bible commentaries and all through the Christian history, and at the same time bringing lots of controversy. I'm going to actually present it to you in a way that perhaps some of you have never actually read it. Now, at the cross, you had Jesus, you had one thief on one side and one thief on another side. The three crosses and the three men hanging from those crosses. Okay? And one of the things that we noticed is that when this thief is hanging from that cross, he is looking at Jesus, and somehow he understands that it's election time. He actually understands that it's election time. He has not much time left. He has election time, and he has recognized one being Jesus, the other one be as resentful and hateful as the other thief. The other thief was already casting a vote. He was casting a vote to remain with Satan, to remain with his kingdom. However, this other thief was able to discern there was election time. And he said the following. He said, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. So when you actually coming into your kingdom, remember me, remember your election promised that you will take me with you, that you are actually going to provide for me a beautiful place and a beautiful affection and love, and that I'm actually part of a missing piece in your heart. Remember me. I want to vote for you. Even there, that guy was on that cross. It was being crucified, and he was perishing. And he said, remember me when you come. Not now, but when you come in your kingdom, when you come as a king, remember me. Now, what Jesus says after has created so much disturbance in the Christian world all through ages of the Christian era, because a particular expression in that verse. Jesus said, as surely I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. As surely I'll say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Now, the Bible is clear in many instances all throughout from a doctrinal point of view that when a person dies, goes to sleep in the tomb, and is waiting there in the tomb without knowledge or recollection of time until what the Bible calls the morning of the resurrection, at the last trump, and the dead in Christ will arise. So that is a biblical teaching that is supported by many, many, many scriptures. So the person that dies, goes to sleep, has no recollection of the time passing. And for that person, as if it was a twinkling of an eye, split second, that person will go from death to life and meet the Lord in the morning of the resurrection. But for that person that has no recollection of time, that has happened very, very quickly. Now, many people find threatened by this statement of Jesus, because Jesus says to him, as surely I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. So I just told you that biblically speaking, that thief today is actually sleeping in the tomb. So if he's sleeping in the tomb, how is it that Jesus said to him, today, the day that I'm speaking to you about, now, currently, now, today, you are going to be with me in paradise. So then some people start getting nervous, and they go, oh, okay, what are we going to do with this? So they get a comma, and they see that comma there, and they go, oh, maybe if I move the comma, and they just start getting that comma, and they move the comma, and they put the comma after today. And they go, as surely I say to you today, you will be with me in paradise. So in other words, I'm telling you today that one day you will be with me in paradise. You know what they just done? They just made themselves a mess. They put themselves in a very awkward situation. Especially when you're giving Bible studies to people that don't have much faith in the Bible. You're already moving commas around, and that person is going to think, hold on a second, if I can move commas around, I can move verses around, I can move everything around. And not just that. In order to justify that they moved the comma, they go and say, well, we know that the thief did not die that day. Oh, how do we know that? Well, we do know that Jesus did that day, and we know that Jesus did not rise that day, but rather on the Sunday. So there is an issue with today you will be with me in paradise because Jesus did not rise until Sunday. And then they push it further and say, well, the thief didn't die that day. Normally on the crucifixion, it takes 3 days to die. So because it takes 3 days to die, the thief didn't die that day. That means that the comma has to be moved. And that means that that day he didn't go to anywhere, to any paradise, because he didn't die that day. Because the resurrection takes 3 days, right? Well, do you notice that there is a part of the story that says that the Romans went to try to break the legs of Jesus. And when they found out that he was already dead, they didn't break the legs. But they did break the legs of the thief on the right, on the thief on the left. Why did they break the legs? Well, they went to Pilate and they said to the Roman governor that they needed to put down, to take down the prisoners from the crosses before the Passover, the festival of the Jews. Their Sabbath was coming and they needed to put them down. So in order to accelerate the process of the resurrection, of the crucifixion, in order to accelerate the process of the crucifixion, that was very, very simple to do. When you're hanging from there, the only reason to get air is by pushing yourself on the nails that are holding your feet until you just get no more strength and then you plunge down again. And then you are doing every so often that in order to get air and oxygen into your lungs. As you're getting more and more tired over the course of 2 to 3 days, and you cannot stand up yourself any longer, your lungs will fill up with liquid and you will actually die out of asphyxia. So why did they break the legs? So they could not actually do this. Why? So they could die before sunset and they can put them down from the cross. So how am I going to explain the fact that the thief died that day and he's not in paradise? I want you to notice what Jesus says to him. And he's looking at him and he knows that that thief is going to die. He's going to die before sunset. He's going to die before the day finishes. And he says to him, thank you for your vote. Thank you for voting for me. I am telling you, today, the suffering is over. Today, you're voting for me. Today, you will be with me in paradise. When? Today. Don't mess up with the comma. There's no need. There's no need to change the comma anywhere. Jesus is saying to him, today, you will be with me in paradise. How? Well, the thief is sleeping in the tomb. But how long has it passed for that thief since they broke their legs and 5 minutes later, the lungs were filled up with liquid and he died? How long did it pass for that thief when 10 minutes after hearing Jesus saying, today you will be with me in paradise, until he actually gets up in the morning of the resurrection? For the thief, how long has it passed? How long? twinkling of an eye. That was a promise to him. Don't mess up with commas. It was a promise to him of the power of restoration and the power of the promise of God. That guy did not live another day. That was the only day that he had left, and that day he voted for Jesus in the last 10 minutes of his life. Then Jesus died, then they broke his legs. 5 minutes later, that guy is dead or out of lack of oxygen. And from the moment that he heard the promise until that promise is going to be fulfilled in his life, for his own recollection, it has only passed 10 minutes. 10 minutes of the same day. That was his promise to him. That was the election time. When we vote for Jesus, he wants us to actually trust him. Trusting in the change of governments. There's always some kind of rough time of changing governments. You know, some of the employees of the previous government still want to remain being employed by the new government, and some need to be removed from their office, and that sometimes takes time. And God is actually asking us to trust him no matter what. No matter if there's still some of the side effects of the previous government's policies are affecting us today. You understand that? If you have been in a country that has been under a dictatorship for many, many years, like my home country of Spain for over 40 years, you ought not to expect that in 1 year of democracy, there's not going to be any effects of the wrongdoings of the previous government. So what God is trying to tell you is that once you vote for him, trust him, despite the fact that you might still have the side effects of sin from the previous government. And that brings to a conclusion story. A friend of mine called me 2 days after laying down in the grave his wife. His wife and my friend, both of them were very good friends of the family. She died of cancer. She fought bravely and she died of cancer. I was actually unable to attend the funeral. And they were very, very near to us, both of them. And we were very close to her, especially since we learned that she was battling with cancer. And he called me 2 days after the funeral. And he said to me, "Oscar, I want to tell you that God has healed my wife." And I go, "Oh no, he's under shock. It's just too much for him. He's just struggling with this." And I said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Look, I'm fine. I just want to tell you that God has answered the prayers and he has healed my wife." Now, bear in mind, when it was discovered that she had cancer, in her church and other churches and internationally in other churches, people were placing her name for prayer and healing. They were a young couple. So, you know, if it's an old individual, you pray for the Lord to do his will upon that individual. But when it's a young person and you see the potential of long life ahead of them, you primarily ask for healing. So many people were actually praying for her healing all around the world, different Christian places, and our family and many families near to them. And my friend tells me over the phone that the last night, she was laying down, she lost so many kilos. She could not actually get up and go to the bathroom by herself anymore. he actually had to take her. And in the last night, during just before both went to sleep, he says to me, I looked at her, she lost so much weight. I could see it around her face and so on. But she looks so beautiful, Oscar. She looks so beautiful. And then I asked her, you still have faith that God can heal you even now? And she goes, I know who I have believed. I know who I have given my life to. He has told me to trust Him. Even if the side effects of sin are still in that transition of governments, is still affecting my life like cancer is affecting my life now. Do you think He can still heal you? And she goes, honey, my life is in His hands. If He wants to heal me, tomorrow morning, who knows, I might have a bit more strength and I can actually walk to the bathroom by myself. And that can actually be the start of my recovery. And in a week, I can just sit down at the table with you and the children. And if God wants, He can start the recovery. The turning point can be, I can just go to sleep now and I get up in the morning and it can be just a recovery. I don't think that God is a liar. He has told me that He was going to heal me, that to trust Him, and He was going to heal me. And people have been praying for the Lord to heal me, and I believe that God has heard my prayers. He knows our context. I asked if He will heal me, and He has given me a confirmation in my heart. He's going to heal me. When? I don't know. But if He chooses to do it, even to have the turning point even tomorrow morning, and I can go to the bathroom by myself, He can choose that. It's up to Him. My friend said to me, Oscar, God has healed my wife. And I said, what are you talking about? Oscar, she fell asleep and never woke up. She fell asleep a minute later. She said to me, I'll see you in the morning. I said to her, I'll see you in the morning. And she fell asleep and never woke up, Oscar. But God has healed my wife. How? Oscar, the story of the thief. Remember what you told me about the thief? The story of the thief. Oscar, I want to be there. I want to be there when God rises her up. Because I want to see her face with the big surprise in her eyes. Friends, how long has it passed for that wife, my friend, since the moment she said, even if God decides to do it in the morning, He can do it. And then she looked at her husband and said, I love you, honey. I'll see you in the morning. From the moment she closed her eyes and tasted death, the sleep of death, until the morning of the resurrection, for that woman, how long has it passed? No recollection of time. It was a blinking of an eye. It's going to be a blinking of an eye, just like I just slept through the night and now is the morning. And my friend was saying, oh, what a surprise in her face is going to be when she opens her eyes and she looked at her restored body. And then she says, honey, what did I tell you? Can He do it? Can He do it or what? Look, He did it, honey. He actually did it. He did it in the morning. He actually did it because His promises are true. And the reason why this world is in the mess that it is because this world continues to vote the tyranny and dictatorship of an impostor, of a lying government. God and His promises are true, and they will always be true. He has healed my friend. and He can heal your life and give you eternal life. But you can do something else besides that. You can be the missing part in His heart. I hope you choose, I hope you vote for the one that loves you. Thank you for your attention.